all over the world, championing it because of the sins of Kensrewiwa. Some of them said, oh, we are not Igbo. We are Ogoni people. But how many are you? Where did you come from? Where do you come from? How can you be in the middle of nowhere and say you are a separate nation? And his name is Ken Wewa, Wa-Ewa, the child of Ewa. Wewa, they changed it to Wewa, W-I-W-A. They think we don't know that they're Igbo people. You can be autonomous all you like. Ngwa can wake up tomorrow and say we are autonomous from Igbo. We are not Igbo, we are Ngwa people. Nobody can begrudge them. Now, after successfully dividing our people through Kensrewiwa and Edwin Clark, a traitor to the core. He's an old man and I wish him more years to live, but I want him to be honest and come out to let him confess. The same thing today that Wike is doing. Wike, the same people that encouraged Kensrewiwa to divide Igbo land, which is Biafra, they were also the same people that killed him. Did any Igbo man kill Kensrewiwa? And when our late eternal leader came to London, I said to him, why did you not intervene when they arrested Kensrewiwa? You could have mobilized the entire Igbo nation, which is Biafra itself, to campaign and to pressure Abacha not to kill your brother, Kensrewiwa. He said to me that what Kensrewiwa did was unpardonable, that it was God that punished him, that he was in no place to intervene. Ojukwu told me this in London. There were many of us there. Ojukwu came to London then with Peter Obi, Chekwas Okorie, Victor Me. Victor Me then was an ordinary treasurer in Abga. We went to buy them clothes at Oxford Street. Victor Me, did you come to England with any clothes? Did we not go to buy you clothes, myself and Ifan Negu, and Samume? And what's his name? Chinedu. What's Chinedu's surname again? Forgotten. Ask Peter Obi now. Ask him. He will tell you. Was I not the one that paid for Jukwo's accommodation at Millennium Hotel with my credit card? Oh dear. At Kensington, that's where we were. Kensington, London. Chekwas Okorie, we found him accommodation elsewhere, not in the same hotel with our eternal leader. Oh, you people, you have all forgotten. Did I run to Peter Obi and ask him for money when he became governor? Mad people everywhere. As I was saying, Ojukwu said they couldn't have intervened because it was God's will. That the same person, not even people, the individual that Kensrewiwa went to ask, do I have, please give me permission to take Igbo people's properties in Igbo? Let me convince Igbo that they are not Igbo. The person he went to, the man that gave the permission said, okay, go ahead, was the man that killed him.
more educated. In fact, they started, the education came to them first. They had the premier in the West.
Africa. I know you won't be disputing that one. Right, so, Brother Justice, if you could. Introduce yourself and then you introduce the organization of what you represent. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great honor to be in this studio. Thank our brother Kwame and brother Cecil for this invitation. My name is Justice Ukachi-Lois. I'm the UK United Kingdom National Coordinator for the indigenous people of Biafra. Now, as Kwame said, Biafra is in Africa. Without getting too controversial, if you look in the ancient maps, even as far back in 1600s, you see the word or the area designated Biafra. So there's no argument about where Biafra is. Now, most of us understand it's also in Nigeria currently. And that's probably
in fact, that big sea area of Nigeria is actually called the Gulf of Biafra, isn't it? Long before Nigeria became a state.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a bite of Biafra, long before Nigeria became known as a country. And that's, so if it existed in the 1600s and Nigeria got its independence in 1960, so Biafra obviously existed before, but and the issue now is whether it's inside Nigeria or is Nigeria inside Biafra. I will need to go into that. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity and privilege to share what little knowledge I have on this huge nebulous topic. But if the process or the actual outcome is to help everybody understand the situation on the ground and also to help us as Africans to stop further bloodshed in that part of the world. We'll all be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, so give a brief history of the organization, represent?
Yes. IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra, is an organization which is like a movement in the sense that it's in over 88 countries in the world. And this occasion because of the fact that most people who were indigenous to Biafra, which is part of the Nigeria, let's say for geographic location, have found themselves scattered all over the world. So you have people within the area of their indigene, which is Biafra within Nigeria and also the rest of the African continent. And there's a saying that where you don't find an Biafran, then that place is not safe. So we are really everywhere. So it's an organization which, like an umbrella group, which try to unite them all to fight a common cause, which by implication, if we stabilize this part of Africa, the whole thing will spread to the rest of Africa. So we are in several countries. I happen to be one of the coordinators in the United Kingdom. So if you go to Germany, you find IPOB. If you go to France, you find IPOB, Ireland, and so on and so forth. But of course, the majority of people live in Biafra land itself. And this is what we're going to explore a bit further. Thank you.
And the common cause is, what's the aim of the organization?
Right. The aim is to have a peaceful restoration of a country we call Biafra, which, as I said earlier, existed way in the ancient days. And if we can restore it, then in a peaceful manner, because we've been through war, which I suppose we can talk about later, there's no need killing each other again to establish what you already have. So this particular organization is going for a peaceful agitation for the restoration of their sovereignty, which is Biafra.
And that means succeeding from Nigeria.
Yeah, people call it seceding. Yeah, people call it seceding. When you use the word secede, it means you're going to, literally price yourself away. But in 1967, when the first word was used to say Biafra, part of Nigeria, was seceding, it was with the understanding that you're a part of a country and you're forcing to go away from it. But if you have been pushed out from one part of the country and you return to your village, you can't be saying you seceded from your from other parts. From the way the world will look at it, as though you're pulling away. But the Biafran experience was that they were in other parts of Nigeria and they were pushed out of that. So nowhere else was safe until they got back to their own fatherland, as it were. And because of the rejection and all the efforts to have peace failed, they declared themselves as a separate part of the country, hoping that in so doing, they'll be left alone and no further bloodshed. Unknown to them, that declaration was a signal for Nigeria to say, well, we have this territorial integrity, you can't go out. So they killed them to kick them out, they killed them to bring them back in, and the killing is still going on. So the IPOB is trying to bring an end to all this killing.
Okay. Right. If you could give us a brief history, just may I assist briefly?
Yes.
You speak of the indigenous people of Biafra.
Yes.
Everybody knows that, in a way, it's Igbo land. So who else is there?
Okay. When we look at the whole map of, if you like, Nigeria, there's a section called Igbo land. The issues like, what's the best way to, you don't really know where the boundary is, because if you imagine Nigeria as an artificial creation, if you look at the African map, it's in boxes, isn't it? So there's an artificial creation. So there's a portion of that artificial creation, which you call the Igbos live here. But they have neighbors like other tribes, like the Efik, like the Ibibio, the Ogojas, and so on. And you keep listing them. It's like if you move from one part of your village and go further down, they speak a slightly different dialect. But they're the way they see the worldview is similar. They have the same cultural identity and understanding. So it's difficult to price them apart. And the mistake people make, or the British make, is say, but you're Igbo and you want to colonize the next tribe. It's not like that. So there's a definite area through marriage, cultural acclimatization. They're actually one. They see themselves as one. So when Biafra was declared, it was an eastern part of Nigeria, which included not just the Igbos, although the Igbos are the majority. There are other tribes which obviously constituted the then Biafra declaration.
There's some people call it Igoni.
Now, there's a portion of this Biafra, it's also called Ogoni. That's a tribe, which is Ogoni tribe. Yeah.
So if they wanted autonomy from Biafra,
yes,
what would be your position on
Interesting, because Biafrans, they have in their head it's autonomy. You can't force them to do what they don't want. So every single tribe that makes up...
Let's call them people.
Because, the tribe is very nebulous.
They're not just nebulous, it's a kind of negative European notion.
Indeed. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So every group of people that constitute that geographic space, if they want to have their own autonomy, that's welcome. There's no... The thing is, autonomy is because we are being suppressed majority of the times due to people being marginalized or discriminated against. They want their own autonomy. But all these communities actually are fractionated. Even in the Igbo land, they have different communities which are fractionated. And that is what makes it difficult to appreciate the Igbo. They have this concept that the Igbo don't have a king or Igbo something like that, which means they don't have one person central and say, I want you to do this. So because each community has its autonomy, so it's inbuilt in their system. And as a result of that inbuilt autonomy, if there's an issue, a village will nominate someone to go and talk on their behalf. And after that discussion, that ends there. You don't carry on representing them. So when the British arrived, they found it very difficult to deal with because they want to talk to who's in charge. There's no one who is in charge. And that's a different concept for everywhere else they've been to. But other parts of Nigeria, they do have something like a ruler, an emir, and they can talk to them who then filter the information down. In the Biafran setting, you don't have this overall ruler. So every village is autonomous. So the Goni people would be autonomous. The Efik are autonomous, and so on. And the combination of all this makes what we call United States of Biafra.
Okay. So that's what the juridical entity, the new state.
That's right.
Very old, but now new in the international scene.
Indeed.
Would be. It'd be a United States of Biafra, United Peoples of Biafra.
Absolutely.
All right. We know that there was a civil war in the 60s, and I was around, so I know just how brutal and awful it was. I don't know if before your time.
I was in it.
All right.
As a child, I survived it.
Right, so you know better than me. All right. So one of the things that I think people have to understand is how that came about, how that actual war between, as it were, the northern part of Nigeria and the western part of Nigeria fighting together to keep the eastern part of Nigeria in a state then called Nigeria, actually still called Nigeria. So how did that come about?
Okay, before you go to that, what I wanted to give a brief history of the area today known as Nigeria. Like who was the people in there before and what contribution did they make towards human development?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a much nebulous. Fine. So the geographical space, I'm glad you used the term, geographical space called Nigeria, came about by, slowly accumulating territories by the British government. What happened was that when the scramble for Africa, basically we all know about slave trade. When that ended, when they got enough, I'm coming to it. Because the slavery occurred, then they stopped taking human capital out of Africa. Now they come back into the African, they had to now, because they used to collect human slaves at the coast. They couldn't go inside because they don't know quite what's going on. So people used to be brought to them at the coast. So when slavery ended, they now have to find a way of getting more resources. So this is the beginning of colonization. Now, all those countries were not, there's no hard fixed boundary, which you could say, this country, I want to now come and colonize you. So they did it by stealth, gradually trading. So the French were coming, the British were coming, so they were actually fighting among each other. And the European, being Europeans, they came they went to Germany and sat on a table and carved up Africa like a turkey. So the reason why Nigeria
or a fish.
Oh, fish. So they had a dinner. They had a dinner party. So they said, all right, you want the leg bit? I'm sticking to my chicken. You want the leg bit? Okay, we'll give you the leg bit. I'll take the arm. I'll take the chest or whatever. You understand? So to stop the Europeans fighting among each other. So when it came to Nigeria, the French were coming from the north and from the west. And then the British sneaked in from the coast and went up to confront the West and to confront the French. So there was, therefore, a deliberate ploy by the British. They started trading at the coast and they gradually moved up to the north. So unknown to them, there was in the north what we call an established empire, which is Islamic. And they were coming down to the south coast. They were coming down to move Islam all the way down to the southern coast. And if you like, in West Africa, is that eastern part, which became Biafra, that hasn't been Islamized. So there was an intention to bring Islam down south coast. So the British met it.
And much of the West wasn't Islamized either, the Yoruba people.
Indeed, they were half and half. So they met this, the British met this intended conquest, if you like, head on to stop them coming down and taking more slaves. There was a fight to stop that. So the British, under a soldier, colonial soldier called Lugard, sent his military to try and conquer the all-conquering Islamic forces. They were very, very upset with that because they thought if the British wasn't there, they would have conquered the whole country. So we have to bear that in mind. But the British conquered the north because the north was conquered by the Fulani, a tribe called Fulani. I'm going to quickly introduce them. A people called Fulani who took on the indigenous people called the HAUSAs in the northern part of Nigeria. And they subdued them and also sent what they call the emirs. Each town the area they conquered, they had a Fulani person ruling it.
A kind of a big chief.
Indeed. So they call it emirs. Now, those emirs confronted the British, and British conquered them because the people the emirs conquered, the houses, they didn't like to be conquered by the Fulanese. So it was easier for the British to conquer the Fulanese, if you imagine what's going on. So the British conquest of the Fulanese was easier than they would have admitted if the whole of the north was behind and fighting the British. So the British said we had the Maxim, the machine gun, so it was easier for them because you have this. Anyway, so they conquered the northern Nigeria where the Fulanese were predominant in ruling. And then the Fulani played, so right, okay, you conquered us, we understand. In fact, Lugard himself said, by the same authority you used to subdue the houses, we're using it to subdue you. So, but what they did was to allow them to carry on ruling that part.
Indirect rule in the book.
So that's it's a very, very strange thing. You conquer them and say, but you can carry on ruling as you have been ruling, but we are in charge now.
It suited the British very well.
It suited them because they didn't have the manpower to administer the whole area. They used the indigenous people who are ruling it to maintain that. So that is up in the north. That's obviously a huge geographical area. But when it came to the south, it was a slightly different scenario.
First happened before that.
It happened before that because in order to get to the north, you have to come from the south. So they bombarded a place like Lagos with a naval gunship, and those ones just caved in because they can't really fight naval naval gunship. The British had a mighty navy. They conquered the east as well, and they merged east with the west. So they now and called it Southern Nigeria or Protectorate. I don't know who they protected. So they call it Southern Protectorate. And the Southern Protectorate and were merged as a result of Lagos, the west and the east. Remember, the capital was originally in Calabar, which is in the east. And I'm sure my brothers in West Indies know about Calabar School and so on.
We have a college in Jamaica by
Indeed,
that name.
Calabar. So it's actually indigenous to that part. So therefore, you had the southern part with Protectorate, then merged with the northern part which has been conquered, which became the Nigeria. So you have the Southern Protectorate merged with the Northern Protectorate in 1914. This when all this happened.
Well, let's get back to that. I think that my brother Kwame was asking something else.
Yes.
Before all of that,
Yes.
the area that we call Nigeria
Yes.
has a culture, and it's very impressive. It's the first place outside of Egypt. It's the first place that excited me, because it has Benin and Ife and Igbo Uko and all of that wonderful and Nok and all of that. I think when he said, what is his contribution to human culture? That perhaps is what he was asking you to talk about. So if you
phenomenal contribution. Phenomenal contribution. I suppose the Benin culture, for example, had, if you go to the bronze, they are really masters of it. And what the British did before they merged into Southern Protectorate, the Benin culture had their own military. They resisted the British invasion force.
400 years.
Yes. And then British then sent an expedition force to totally wipe them out.
1896 or 97.
Indeed. And as a result of complete destruction of the Benin kingdom, they grabbed all the artifact and brought it to the British. In fact, I think 2 days ago, I read somewhere saying, we want our statues back.
The Nigerians been asking for that for the longest while. They offer to loan it. They say it's dangerous to hand it back. You don't have the right condition there to protect it. All kind of arguments. They say we didn't really steal it with legitimate.
We captured it. We found it. So it's the same thing as the Greek marble.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the culture, when you look at them, the intricacy of it is phenomenal. I personally saw an exhibition many years ago when I was at university, when they came to London, of the artwork. And we mentioned Benin. We also, when they come to the eastern part, they also had this amazing, delicate exhibition, the pot with the weave, right? They also had that you can really appreciate the advance in their culture. Then in the north, they also had their own Islamic way of doing things. So the Nook culture was also, we're talking centuries ago. But
it's actually more than centuries. The
ancient times,
the foundation culture, the earliest thing that the archaeologists talk about is the Nok culture, and it's now agreed that it can date it back to about 1000 BC.
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about centuries. We're actually talking about millennia. We're talking about 3 millennia of a continuous culture that has connections.
That's right.
In artistic material that uses bronze, that uses ivory, that uses wood, which doesn't last very long, and that also uses baked pottery, which does last very long if it's not in wet conditions. So we actually have, because all of this stuff is preserved, evidence of the quality of that cultural connection and reality that does in fact go back 3,000 years.
And you also have pyramids built in a place like Udi in the eastern part. There are pyramids which most people don't know about. So to talk about what have they contributed, it's not just in that culture. Their music, their artwork, and of course the history. You only need to listen to some of their languages. Some of us have certificates put in the drawer, but those people, their wisdom in their idioms will make you understand they were really advanced cultures.
And speaking of language, one of the fascinating things is that the HAUSA, who the Igbos may not particularly like, I don't know, but the HAUSA have this wonderfully, I'm sure it's not actually more intricate than anybody else's, but the Western linguists regard it as a phenomenally complicated and impressive language, there's a reservoir of all kinds of cultural stuff. And they've suddenly decided that it's not really an African language at all. Because every time something of cultural that they recognize as of cultural significance is found in Africa, it cannot be African. So I think on this program we were saying a few weeks ago, so the HAUSA language, because of its riches, is not African. The Ife bronzes, which were rediscovered in the early 20th century, the first one in 1910, and then a whole set of them in Ife, in the Olokon Grove, as you probably know, in the 1920s. Once that stuff was discovered, clearly, artistically, it's on a match with ancient Egypt and with ancient Greece. They don't talk about ancient Egypt. They say that the Greeks must have come across the Mediterranean, come across the Sahara, come another 1,000 miles down across the grassland and the forest, and taught these Africans how to do this stuff. Even though, in point of fact, Greece's flowering is 500 or 600 BC, and we now know that the Nock stuff is at least 500 years older, and probably even older than that. So it makes no sense at all. And they do the same thing with Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is this phenomenal monument, probably 13th century, and they get there, they see it, and it cannot be African. So I have a little book. The title of it is The Arab Builders of Great Zimbabwe, and they have these people in Arab dress who they're saying went all the way down the Indian Ocean, and then how far up into Africa is Great Zimbabwe? It's at least 1,500 miles, probably 2,000 miles. Africa is vast, and they say that these people left from wherever in the Arab world they came from. Leave aside the fact that the Arabs are actually mostly black people, but leave that aside and come down, get up in the middle of Africa and build this thing. And the problem with that one, there's so many problems with it, is that although Great Zimbabwe is the biggest of these stone cities, in fact, have done stuff. So the explanation is that they really didn't do it. The Portuguese helped the Benin to make their bronzes, or the Greeks helped their predecessors to the people of Ife to make their bronzes, or they don't bother to know that those people were part of a tradition that stretched back before Greece. Leave aside the Egyptian connection or the Ethiopian connection. Yeah,
absolutely, because the Herodotus, who's known as a Greek historian,
he was indeed.
If he's the father of history, he wrote about Africa.
Yes,
so you can be a father of history, writing about history that's already been made.
Yes.
So everything African, like the building the pyramids, all the advanced technology, they always try to find it impossible to attribute it or to ascribe it to black people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
So the civilization is for them to see and acknowledge they actually belong to black people.
Yes.
And they try everything to denigrate. I think it was Napoleon who chopped up the nose of the Sphinx.
Yes.
Because he couldn't believe.
Then he shot it off.
So that for him, it can't possibly be black nose. You know, it can't. So to answer your question, civilization in Africa, wherever you look, in fact, there were more pyramids, weren't they, in Sudan?
Yes, absolutely. Than in Egypt. Absolutely.
So people don't say that.
Yeah.
So the black people, they were, if from point of view of contribution to civilization, they're highly advanced. And the Renaissance they talk about in France.
We invented human culture first, and then human civilization. Everything that they call civilization. Literature, music, the arts, medicine, scientific technology, and so on. All of that starts in Africa.
So what they did was to conquer Egypt and burn all the books that will support. But the hieroglyphics, all the writing is still there for them to see.
Let's just look briefly at that burning process before. Right. So, and it's legitimate, because what we're really talking about is African contribution to world civilization. And we're focusing on Nigeria, but it connects the whole of the continent. So that burning process, it doesn't start with Napoleon. When the Greeks arrive and conquer Egypt, they collect up Egyptian books that are scattered. Scattered is the wrong word, that are located in the temples throughout Egypt. So they scatter them up and they put them in a library in Alexandria. And people talk about this as a Greek library. Nothing Greek about it. Greeks never had any books to put in no library. They've been writing for about 400 years by then, and most of the stuff that they've written was stolen, imitated, whatever from ancient Egypt. So all of this stuff gets collected up in effectively two different entities in Alexandria and so on. And then the Romans arrive and the burning process starts. There's either an accidental or a deliberate fire at the time of Mark Antony in that war between him and another Caesar. The stuff that the stuff that takes place around
it could be Pompey, Alexander.
Around what the Queen did name?
Queen Cleopatra.
Queen Cleopatra, exactly so. And so the burning begins then. And then the Arabs arrive and they do some burning. And before the Arabs, the Christians who don't like this heritage of pagan, because Jesus is not celebrated in it, they burn some of that stuff. And so the burning, the destruction and stealing thing has been going on for at least 1,000 and 1,100 and develops in the north of Nigeria, in places like Senegal, just to the north of Senegal, African language, even if it's in African knowledge, even if it's in their language, because they're Arabic. So right now, Islamists are busy in Mali, in Timbuktu. The French are trying to stop them. God knows why the French are trying to stop them. And the UN, and see why the UN is trying to. But that burning process happening, because just as in Afghanistan. There's some Islamic barbarians, and they destroy stuff that's non-Islamic because they see it as, well, just not Islamic and therefore not in praise of Allah. It doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter whether it predates Allah and Islam or not. They set about to destroy it, and a lot of that is happening in the Sahel, just to the south of the Sahara right now. So these processes are alive and still damaging our culture, historical.
And our headache now is those who have been privileged to read a little bit is to make sure our people understand all this.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
The history belongs to history books, but we're going to bring it alive. It's the knowledge we impart to the next generation that's important, to empower them to realize, hang on, what's this about Africans being inferior? That's not right. And that's really the message I want to say. So I don't know if that's
and just one last point about that before we return to modern Nigeria. this burning and destruction and denial, this cutting off of the north of Africa, of Egypt, and saying that it wasn't African, wasn't black, that serves a real function, right? Because when the Europeans arrive in India or in China, which they did, or in Japan, or even in Mexico, they see and acknowledge at once that they are in the presence of old, deep culture. You don't want to do that in Africa, but don't know that we're at the head of have done, and we believe what they throw at us, that we're nothing and have never done anything, which history's largest ever lie. Right? Just as the enslavement of our people is history's largest monstrosity. The Jews are trying to tell us that the Holocaust is the worst thing that happened in history. Not a thing of us. So what happened to us is by far eons more than the Holocaust. This is not to approve the Holocaust in any way or to deny it, but it's small beer in comparison to what happened to us. And yet we, because of the power of the media, because of our own ignorance, because much of this stuff we've been able to know for something like the last 2 centuries. There have been individual black people who are writing this stuff, and it's there in the books, but we don't bother to learn it because we don't get told that it's there. We don't know that's important, and we listen. Our young people listen to all kinds of stuff. I listened to Michael Jackson. You just playing with Michael Jackson, and I didn't understand a word of it. To be absolutely to be absolutely honest, and that's what our young people are listening to, right? And sometimes there's stuff there, but mostly there's next to nothing there. And the places that they could go for real knowledge of us, of our history, of our contribution to humanity, of indeed of our making of humanity, the people of them don't know because they don't have any way of accessing it.
Yeah, so that's partly why, if you have a stable country, and Biafra would be one of those, it will respect these cultures. It will
In the States,
67 to 70, during its war, it demonstrated its ability to innovate when it was totally impossible to innovate. Some Europeans are around and say, this is the first place we've been to in Africa where the blacks are doing everything. So they were shocked at the amount of what they were able to do. So civilization had been there, but we need to mine it and have stable countries in Africa which will actually show it. So people from abroad will come in and see for themselves. Until we have stable countries, it's going to be difficult to do that.
So return now then to what you were telling us about, which is the making of Nigeria, say in the 19th and 20th century.
So it was therefore a colonial construct in the sense that you had those indigenous cultures embedded prior to the arrival of the Europeans who were scrambling for mineral resources and had to acquire wealth to run their industries. So Nigeria therefore was put together, what we call an agglomeration of divergent cultures. In fact, the person who put them together, Loduga, said water and oil can't mix. They know that the type of cultures that were in their different, if you like, peoples, although they intermarried, they looked after, they were never at war. They were not industrial industrialized killing of one tribe or the other. They intermarried, they traded. So all these, but they had a different, distinct identity. Now,
so what did Lugard mean when he talked about water and oil not mixing?
Because he realized from the north, the Muslim way of doing things is different from the. Remember, I said to you, they had somebody who could rule and tell them what to do. Whereas in the south, in the east, they have some stubborn people like myself who, if you want to tell them what to do, you have to call a meeting.
But another part of
when you call a meeting, then people sat down and discussed what you're bringing to them to do, whether it's to the advantage or not. So as a result, there were two different people. The British could tell the North what to do, and they do it straight away. They can try and impose it in the East, and it wouldn't work.
Right.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, great Biafrans and lovers of freedom. This is Radio Biafra HAUSA service coming to you through Radio Biafra London. My name remains MAZI Jonathan Chinedu. Without wasting time, we are going direct to the head of Directorate of States, MAZI Chika Edoziem. Please, over to you, MAZI. The platform is yours. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, MAZI Jonathan. I wouldn't know if I am coming out clear, please.
You are MAZI. Please go on. You are.
Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and good night, wonderful and great Biafrans all over the world. My name is MAZI Chika Edoziem. I come from Ihe-Oma. Ihe-Oma is in Olu province of Biafra land. And by the grace and mercy of Chukwu Abiyama, I serve the indigenous people of Biafra in the Directorate of State as the head of Directorate. This is an emergency broadcast. Many of us will have noticed and will have seen, you may have read the engagement that has been undertaken by our traditional custodians, those who are the custodians of our tradition and customs, the Igwes and the kings. We have also seen and heard the engagement of our religious leader, the clergy, the council of archbishops and bishops. We have seen the engagement and we have heard the engagement of genuine elders in Biafra land, whom have made it a point of responsibility and